Moscow, 1849. A 28-year-old man stands before a firing squad, blindfolded and bound. The soldiers raise their guns. He takes a deep breath, perhaps for the last time. At that moment, Fyodor Dostoevsky discovered something that modern society hides from you. True freedom is not an achievement. It is a sentence. Have you ever felt that? That silent weight of having all the options in the world in the palm of your hand, but none of them really seem like yours? That strange anguish of being able to choose anything, career, relationship, lifestyle, but not being able to escape the feeling that you are living someone else's life. It's like waking up in an endless supermarket where everything is available, but you've lost your shopping list, where every aisle offers 1,000 possibilities, but none of them remind you why you went there in the first place. You stand there, paralyzed not by the lack of options, but by the excess of them. And deep down, a voice whispers something you don't want to hear. What if I choose wrong? What if this choice defines me forever? Dostoevsky experienced this in a brutal way. When the soldiers lowered their guns at the last second, and his death sentence was commuted to hard labor in Siberia, he felt no relief. He felt terror, because he realized something that we, more than a century later, still pretend not to know. That the freedom to choose is also the freedom to destroy oneself. And that perhaps deep down, we don't want that responsibility. Think about the last time you scrolled through Instagram for 2 hours straight. It wasn't pleasure, it was escape. Escape from the reality that you have a life to build, decisions to make, risks to take. Each scroll was a way to postpone the moment when you would have to choose who you want to be today. Because choosing means giving up all the other versions of yourself that could exist. Today you will discover why this man, who spent 4 years in a Siberian prison and then created some of the most disturbing characters in world literature, understood something about the human condition that our time refuses to accept. Something that explains why you can have everything and still feel empty. Why your choices, instead of freeing you, sometimes seem to imprison you even more. The truth that Dostoevsky discovered is simple and devastating. We have been taught a childish version of freedom, and it's time to grow up. There is a freedom they sell you at the mall. It's shiny, colorful, and comes with 36 interest-free installments. You can choose between 15 flavors of coffee, 40 cell phone models, hundreds of streaming series. This freedom whispers in your ear, you are free to be whoever you want, consume whatever you want, live however you want. It's comforting, it's safe, it's a lie. Dostoevsky knew the other kind, the freedom that doesn't come wrapped in gift paper, that doesn't come with an instruction manual, that doesn't promise you'll be happy. The freedom that hurts, the freedom that weighs heavily, the freedom that, once experienced, no longer allows you to pretend that your choices have no consequences. In Memoirs from the Underground, he created a character who looks at us in the mirror every day, the man in the underground. A guy who has all the options in the world, but lives paralyzed by the awareness that every choice is a definitive cut in reality, that every yes is also a no to 1,000 other possibilities. That choosing is always a form of dying. Imagine yourself holding a pair of scissors in front of an infinite piece of fabric. Each cut you make creates something new, but also destroys forever all the other forms that fabric could have taken. The underground man understands this. He knows that every time you choose a path, you kill all the others. That's why he hesitates. That's why he suffers. That's why he sometimes prefers not to choose anything. The underground man is not crazy. He is you in the early hours of the morning, when the endless Instagram feed can no longer fill the void. He is you on Sunday afternoon, when laziness is not relaxation, but a symptom of something bigger, the exhaustion of being free. He is you standing in front of a closet full of clothes thinking, I have nothing to wear, because deep down, you no longer know who you are trying to be. He's you when you open LinkedIn and see all your seemingly fulfilled colleagues, but instead of envy, you feel something worse, indifference. As if all those achievements were pieces in a game you don't remember starting. As if life were a movie in which you forgot which character you were playing. Our time has created a diabolical illusion that freedom is synonymous with options. The more choices we have, the freer we are. The more possibilities, the more fulfilled we will be. That's why you can spend an hour choosing what to watch on Netflix and not be able to watch anything. That's why dating apps, instead of making love easier, sometimes make it harder to truly love someone. That's why having access to all the information in the world hasn't made you wiser, but more confused. The strategy is perverse. We have been convinced that freedom is having many doors to open, when in fact freedom is having the courage to close the doors that don't work. We were sold an endless buffet when what we needed to learn was to choose one dish and savor every bite. Dostoevsky understood that this is not freedom. It is anesthesia. True freedom does not lie in the multiplicity of options, but in the courage to fully accept the consequences of a choice. It is not being able to choose everything. It is being able to choose something and live with it until the end, knowing that you and only you are responsible for every outcome. But there is something more disturbing. The man in the underground discovered that sometimes we prefer paralysis to responsibility. We prefer to complain that we have no choices rather than face the weight of having them. Because choosing truly means accepting that if our life is not what we wanted, it is not the fault of the system, society, or others. It is our fault. Think about the last time you scrolled through your phone for hours without seeing anything important. That feeling wasn't pleasure, it was escape. Escape from what? From the reality that you have a life to live and decisions to make. That there are people to love, projects to create, risks to take. But all of this requires something that our era has taught us to avoid: commitment. Commitment is the antithesis of modern freedom. It's the word that makes the whole world recoil. Committing to a job, to a person, to a version of yourself means giving up all other possibilities. It means betting your chips on a specific table, knowing that you may lose, and whether you win or lose, you will be responsible for the outcome. The man in the basement does something that no digital influencer will ever do. He looks at this reality without blinking. He admits that true freedom is not liberation, it is condemnation. Condemnation to be responsible for every choice, every word, every silence. For every time you said, "I love you," and every time you should have said it but didn't. Dostoevsky discovered that we were not made for this burden, that the human conscience, when confronted with total responsibility, collapses. That is why we invent excuses, blame others, create narratives that take us out of the center of our own lives. It is easier to be a victim of circumstances than the author of one's own destiny. But here is the cruel paradox that the underground man whispers in your ear in the sleepless hours of the night. Only when we take on this unbearable weight do we stop being slaves. Only when we accept that our freedom is a curse does it truly become ours. And that, my friend, is not the kind of freedom they sell in shop windows. Raskolnikov wakes up one morning and decides to kill an old woman. Not for money, not out of anger, but because of an idea. The idea that he is special, that the moral rules that imprison ordinary people do not apply to him, that his intellectual superiority gives him the right to transgress what others consider sacred. If this sounds familiar, it's because Raskolnikov lives in your head too. Every time you think, "I deserve more than this," every time you justify betrayal because they don't understand me, every time you break a promise because circumstances have changed, you are choosing to be the exception to the rules you expect everyone else to follow. Dostoevsky created Raskolnikov to show us something disturbing, that the freedom to choose always comes with the temptation to consider ourselves special, unique, above the consequences that destroy lesser people. It's what modern psychologists call superiority bias. But Dostoevsky understood it decades before psychology existed. Think about the last time you cut in line because you were late. The last time you lied in a relationship because it was just once and it didn't mean anything. The last time you broke your word because no one will get hurt. In each of these moments, you weren't just making a choice. You were proclaiming yourself an exception. Raskolnikov kills the old woman and expects to feel free. Freed from the moral conventions that limit mediocre people. But something happens that he didn't foresee. Guilt isn't a feeling, it's physical. It has weight, temperature, texture. It haunts him like a shadow that grows with the sun. The more he tries to rationalize what he's done, the more the guilt materializes in his flesh. Dostoevsky's genius was to realize that guilt is not a bug in the moral system. It is a feature. It exists to remind us of something our age desperately tries to forget. That our choices do not happen in a vacuum, that our every action reverberates in the fabric of reality, altering the lives of people we may never know. But here's the cruel paradox of modern freedom. The more options we have, the more pressure we feel to make the right choice. And the more pressure we feel, the more we try to convince ourselves that we're special enough not to suffer the consequences of bad choices. That's why you might feel guilty about choosing the wrong series on Netflix. Why you might torture yourself for hours deciding which photo to post on Instagram. Why you might panic when choosing a birthday present. It's not about the series, the photo, or the gift. It's about the unbearable weight of being responsible for every decision in an age that offers endless choices. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this journey is resonating with you. Something is being named for the first time. Stay with me, because what comes next may change the way you relate to your own contradictions. Raskolnikov discovers that killing a person is easy. The hard part is killing the memory. The hard part is living with the version of yourself that emerged after the choice. Because every radical choice transforms us into someone we weren't before. And this new version of ourselves can be a haunted stranger we don't know how to love. Modern society sells us the idea that we can choose without changing, that we can have experiences without carrying scars, that we can make important decisions while keeping our essence intact. Raskolnikov proves that this is a childish fantasy. Every choice we make is also a choice about who we become. Every yes is a mutation in our identity. Every no is a small death of who we could have been. And contrary to what self-help books promise, we have no control over who we become after we choose. We only find out by living. Raskolnikov's torture is not just the guilt for his crime. It is the discovery that he can no longer recognize the man in the mirror, that his choices have turned him into someone he doesn't know how to be, that the freedom to act always comes with the condemnation of forever carrying the inner consequences of what we have done. Maybe that's why you put off important decisions. Maybe that's why you prefer not to choose rather than choose wrong. Because deep down, you know that certain choices cannot be undone, that certain doors once opened cannot be closed, that certain versions of yourself once born cannot die. And that awareness, my friend, is both a curse and a wisdom that few have the courage to bear. The Karamazov brothers are three men who live inside you. Dmitri, the impulsive one who acts on his heart and regrets it later. Ivan, the skeptic who questions everything but can't live with the answers. Alesha, the idealist who believes in love even when the world proves it's impossible. They fight inside your head every day. Dmitri is you when you explode in traffic, when you send that message you shouldn't have sent, when you act on passion and then face the consequences. He can't pretend. He can't hold back. He can't be strategic. His emotions overflow like water from a cracked dam, and he pays the social price for that brutal honesty. Ivan is you when you question whether it's worth being good in a world where bad people thrive, when you doubt whether your beliefs make sense, whether your values are grounded, whether there is any logic in the universe beyond brute force and self-interest. He sees hypocrisy in everything, including himself, and this lucidity paralyzes him. Alesha is you when you still believe that it is possible to love without being betrayed, to trust without being deceived, to give without being exploited, when you choose to be vulnerable even though you know that vulnerability hurts, when you prefer to be foolish rather than cynical even if cynicism is safer. Dostoevsky understood something that our era refuses to accept, that we are all moral schizophrenics. Within us coexist the saint and the devil, the hero and the coward, the lover and the destroyer. The difference between people is not that some are good and others are bad. The difference is which voice we decide to obey at any given moment. But here's the problem. Modern society demands that you choose a mask and wear it forever. That you be consistent, predictable, professional. That your contradictions remain private and your uncertainties never appear in public. That you sell a simplified version of yourself that fits the expectations of others. That's how you learn to hide Dmitri when you're at work. To silence Ivan when you're with your family. To disguise Alesha when you're with friends who consider kindness a weakness. You become an expert at showing only the part of yourself that is socially acceptable in each context. The result is a fragmented life where you are never entirely yourself anywhere. Where you have to remember which character you are playing in every conversation. Where authenticity becomes a luxury you can't afford if you want to survive socially. But Dostoevsky discovered something cruel about masks. The longer you wear one, the harder it is to take it off. Not because it sticks to your skin, but because you forget what the face underneath looks like. You start to confuse the character with the person, the performance with reality, the mask with the mirror. That's why you can feel fake even when you're not lying. That's why you can feel lonely even when you're surrounded by people. That's why you can be successful in all areas of life and still wonder who you really are when you're alone in the dark. The Karamazov brothers live in a world where being authentic is a revolutionary act, where showing vulnerability is an existential risk, where admitting contradictions is a form of social suicide. And yet each of them, in their own way, refuses to live a completely false life. Dmitri would rather be judged by his impulses than pretend to be controlled. Ivan would rather be tortured by his doubts than pretend to have certainties. Alyosha would rather be hurt by his faith than pretend to be cynical. They pay a high price for this choice, but they preserve something that most people lose: the ability to recognize themselves in the mirror. Perhaps that is why you feel a strange relief when someone admits a weakness, when someone confesses a doubt, when someone shows a contradiction. It is not schadenfreude, it is recognition. It is the rare joy of finding another human being who has not yet lost themselves completely in their own masks. The truth that Dostoevsky whispers through the Karamazov brothers is simple and frightening. Being authentic hurts more than pretending. But pretending kills something inside you that once dead never comes back to life. And some prices, my friend, are too high to pay, even if the alternative is to carry the unbearable burden of being exactly who you are. In a world that rewards performance, choosing authenticity is choosing a specific kind of loneliness. But it is also choosing a specific kind of freedom that no mask, no matter how perfect, can ever offer. Sonia is a prostitute out of necessity, but a saint by choice. She sells her body to feed her family and preserves her soul through unconditional love. When Raskolnikov confesses his crime to her, she does not back down. She does not judge. She does not try to fix him. She just loves him. And in this unconditional love, Dostoevsky reveals the best-kept secret of human existence. Sonia understood something that our age refuses to accept, that you don't have to be perfect to deserve love, that you don't have to hide your wounds to be worthy of care, that you don't have to pretend you don't suffer to have value. She loves Raskolnikov not despite the crime he committed, but including the crime he committed. This is not romanticizing suffering. It is something more radical. It is the understanding that suffering is not the opposite of life. It is part of it. That trying to eliminate it is like trying to live without breathing. That peace does not come from running away from pain, but from learning to dance with it. Think about the last time you tried to hide something from someone you love. A weakness, a mistake, a vulnerability. You weren't protecting that person. You were protecting yourself from the possibility of being rejected for who you really are. Sonia teaches something that our culture of virtual perfection has forgotten. That true love only happens when the masks come off. But accepting pain does not mean resignation. It means stopping wasting energy pretending it doesn't exist. It means recognizing that suffering can be a more honest teacher than happiness. That your scars tell a truer story than your successes. That your moments of breakdown were also your moments of rebuilding. Dostoevsky lived this firsthand. The years in Siberian prison did not destroy him. They revealed him. The experience of nearly being shot did not traumatize him. It awakened him. He discovered that pain, when accepted, turns into wisdom. That suffering, when embraced, turns into compassion. That fragility, when assumed, turns into strength. It's the opposite of what you've been taught. Our culture promises that if you make the right choices, buy the right products, follow the right strategies, you will eliminate suffering from your life. That's a lie. Suffering is the price of being alive. The only real choice is whether you will suffer by resisting life or suffer by embracing it. Sonia chose the second option. She carries her pain as one carries a child, with care, with purpose, with love. She neither hides it nor flaunts it. She simply acknowledges it as part of who she is. And in that acceptance, she finds a freedom that neither Raskolnikov, with all his rationalization, nor Ivan, with all his intellectualism, can achieve. True freedom is not the absence of limits. It is the radical acceptance of them. It is not being able to do anything. It is taking full responsibility for everything you have done. It is not escaping the consequences. It is embracing them as part of your story. If Dostoevsky were alive today, he would look at our endless feeds, our unlimited options, our freedom of convenience, and ask the question no one wants to hear. Where, in all this freedom, are you? The real you, not the edited version. The complete you, not the fragment that fits in a bio. The contradictory, wounded, eternally evolving you. He would see that we have traded painful freedom for the security of performance. That we prefer the golden prison of expectations to the frightening responsibility of being exactly who we are. That we choose the slow death of adaptation over the intense life of authenticity. But Dostoevsky would also see that even in this world of digital masks and anesthetized pain, there are still Sonias, people who choose to love including their wounds, who choose to be true including their contradictions, who choose to live including suffering. You can be one of them. You can choose to stop running away from your own complexity. You can choose to carry your scars like sacred tattoos, your mistakes like strict teachers, your doubts like honest companions. You can choose the freedom that hurts instead of the freedom that lies. Because in the end, when all the masks are on the floor and all the filters are turned off, when all the performances are over and only you are left in the silence of the early morning, the only question that matters is this: did you have enough courage to be human? The answer to that question is not in what you achieved or what you avoided. It's in the way you loved, the way you suffered, the way you got up after you fell. It's in your ability to look in the mirror and recognize not a hero or a villain, but simply someone who had the unbearable courage to exist. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough freedom for a lifetime. Did this video spark any new thoughts? I'd love to hear what you liked most, so leave a comment below. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos, you reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and apply this knowledge to your life, the codes of the White Rabbit are ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.